Kevin Rudolf, welcome, man. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Here's the thing. Kevin Rudolph's got a new single out. It's called "Here's to Us." It's been out since late June.
Nah, it's actually not. It's circulating. It's not even. It's not. It's going to be on iTunes July 30th.
I wondered about that because your press release said it was out June 19th. It was one of those things that you really haven't seen or heard a lot about it until now.
You can't trust those press releases. I'll tell you that. You cannot. Don't believe anything they say.
The interesting thing that I've always thought about your music was when you first came out and you had obviously a huge hit right out of the box. It was one of those, this is an interesting mix of a couple of different things.
Right.
Did that come from, as a kid or as growing up, having a lot of different influences and different types of music that you listen to? Because you found a unique way to put them all together.
Well, I think part of it came from growing up in New York, and, you know, there aren't really any lines there, you know. So you've got you know, urban music, you've got pop music, you've got, you know, there's art, there's theater, there's everything going on there. And so I think I absorbed a lot of that. And then as I was growing up, I was working a lot in the hip hop world. I was working with Timbaland, I was working with Cash Money on other projects, and I always had that side to me, but I was always, you know, more of a rock musician coming from a guitar background. And so as an artist, you know, all those colors were in my palette when I started making music and producing.
And when did you know? Like, was there a point where, I always find it interesting when we talk to artists that they always seem to have a point where they just, like, something happened and they just knew, okay, this is what I want to do.
I told my parents at about the age of 12 that I would not be going to college.
That's scary.
I said, give up all hope. It's not going to happen.
Because you were that into music at that point?
Because I knew that's what I wanted to pursue. You know, once I started really getting a feel for the instrument, for when I was, you know, as a guitar player. Yeah.
What made you want to start picking up the instrument to begin with?
I think I was at my grandparents' house over Thanksgiving, and I was watching Back to the Future on cable, and I thought, I don't care if I'm talking about the end scene for those who haven't seen the movie, but you know, if anyone's ever seen Back to the Future, I think you want a guitar.
Yeah.
You don't need to play it. You don't need to do anything, but you need to have one, and you want. You know what I'm saying?
The reason Riggins picked up the guitar, his brother told him this is the way you meet girls in college.
Yeah, I mean, it was as simple as that. And
I already said I wasn't going to college, though.
That's true.
Okay?
Yeah, so you already took that. But everybody's got their own reason. I think it's just interesting to see how people evolve and pick it up and really get into it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think everything we do in life is to kind of, you know, get girls or attract the opposite sex, or for some people the same sex, but you know, it just whatever that's what we're doing, you know. We're always trying to communicate.
So what's fun is that the new single "Here's to Us" comes out, and it has a completely different sound from what you had done before. You know what I'm saying? The first time I heard it described, somebody said, hey, when you hear it, it kind of sounds like a train song. And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting take on things. That's very different from what you had done before.
Right.
A thoughtful, logical move on your part, or was it kind of like, let's just see what happens here?
No. I think as an artist, you're always creating. I don't sit there and go, I'm going to make 10 songs that sound like Let It Rock. You know, I've evolved a lot as an artist since then. That was 4.5 years ago. You know, I've always done music that was like this. If you listen to my first album, there's songs like Scarred, Great Escape. I always showed that side of myself, but it's not the side that became successful. So what happens is when you have a hit record, everyone puts you in that box. They think everything you do is that. He's the guy who does that, and he can't do anything else or wouldn't do anything else, you know? When that record came out, everyone said, do you have another Let It Rock? Do you have another Let It Rock? And I was like, well, that's one song, you know? So this is, again, one song, but it just shows, you know, kind of where I'm going, I think, which is toward lyrically really being much more in your face, you know? I'm not hiding behind any instrumentation or production. I'm putting myself out there more, and I'm really trying to communicate the real message of the song, which I thought wasn't heard with Let It Rock.
Is that scary for you at all?
No, it's not scary because it's time.
That's interesting. 'Cause a lot of people say, when they get really personal with something, and that lyric means something, that they get scared that they put it out there, and people kind of, if they don't get into it, it's kind of like a personal rejection.
Yeah, it can feel that way, but I've developed a thick skin. I've been doing this long enough. I can take it.
Cool.
Do you face resistance from management or record companies when you decide that maybe you don't want to fit inside their boxes? What's that like?
No, because they never gave me a box.
No.
Cash Money was always, do make your art. We sign you because you're an artist, so go make art. And that's why I signed with them. And when I gave them this record, they just love it. They just love music. They don't care. They're so open-minded. It's you think Babies and Slim are only sitting there listening to hip hop all day, like they only listen to Lil Wayne, and it's not the case with anybody.
I only ever see them buying cars. Every time they're on MTV, they're buying cars.
Yeah,
that's a whole crazy thing they got going on over there.
I played them this record and they bought a car.
That's exactly what happened. That's all I know that they did.
Yeah, so look, people are which brings me back really to the meaning of this record, which is that people aren't quite how you think they are, and everyone has their own challenges and their own, they're facing their own thing. But the song is about being an individual, and it's about facing hardship and kind of looking at life and maybe laughing a little bit and saying, here's to us, and this is what we're all going through, but we're going through it together too. You know what I mean? So I think that's Slim and Baby, they relate to that message.
That's cool. How often do you use personal experience? I guess I'm not quite sure how to phrase this. Where you're using someone else's personal experience to write a song, but you have to kind of conceal it, and so I don't want them to know that I'm writing about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you're involved in that, because we've talked to people before that say my wife thinks this song is written about her, but it's really not. It's about somebody else. But I let her think that. That kind of thing.
Well, not to be too philosophical here, but I think at the end of the day, every song is about you. So every song that I write is about me. Even if I'm seeing what I'm seeing in someone else's experience, it's how I see it.
That's cool. How often do you write something and think, God, this is good. This is great. And then the next, you go do whatever, go to dinner, come home, go to bed. The next day you go, I got to hear that again. Let me pick it up and see what that is. And you realize, God, what was I thinking? That is not good at all.
It works both ways. Sometimes you hear something and go, that's just something I did, and then your friend comes over to the studio and they're listening and go, man, that's great. And you go, it is? Yeah. I'm going to finish that one up later. So you never know. It goes both ways.
When you're sitting and writing or creating, are you one of those people that says, okay, today I got to go in and write? Or is it like stop, I got to write this down. I heard something in my head, or you're in the shower having to get out, kind of. Is there a certain process for you, or is it just it's going to hit me as it comes and goes and we just let it happen?
Sometimes it's picking up a guitar, and I think when I started Here's to Us, I picked up a little ukulele in bed, and I was lying in bed just going no. Sometimes I'm making a beat. Sometimes, it comes from a skeleton of a track I've made, and I just start, singing over it, and you start picking out words. And, to me, it's really more about channeling something than anything else. It's not like sitting there going, okay, what rhymes with this, or what do I want to write about? It comes from a feeling. It comes from channeling an emotion, an energy, hoping that there's something that you can pull out of the ether, There's something else out there and that you can bring through you.
That's awesome. Now, this music video...
It's deep.
It's so deep.
I didn't even go to college.
Full circle, you see what's happening. Go. Is this the first time you've directed... This is the first music video you've directed, right?
Yeah.
But is this the first foray you've made into any kind of production like this in video?
I've always had a sense of visuals. I'm a big movie fan. I've always thought I could direct. I always thought I had something to say in terms of connecting the song with the video. But this is the first time I've done it. And, it was just more of sort of finding moments, and moments that had happened already that worked with this song, that had emotion to it, that made you feel something. And so it was just about kind of collecting those clips until it looked like how I heard the song.
It's an interesting, the video itself tells a story through home movies and clips from him on tour and as a younger. Is that a process going through those, I would imagine, hundreds or thousands of clips, just picking out the pieces and lining it up? Is that just a nightmare, or is that fun?
No, it wasn't a nightmare. What the nightmare part of it was clearing most of those clips.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, but finding the clips was just sort of, well, what would work? What would feel good? It was just sort of, it was almost like I saw the complete video in my mind, and then it was just about finding the pieces that made it go there. But then again, as far as with the clips, it's like you met some people who were like, wow, thanks so much, love to have my clip in the video. And then you find people who are like, I want $100,000. And they're like, okay. You know what I mean? And then we went in this process, ended up, developing a relationship with Evel Knievel's son, and that was the coolest thing ever. So,
no way.
Yeah. It's been an interesting journey.
So when you talked about how personal these songs are to you and what they mean to you and everything, are there things that you've written that perhaps when you finish you decide that's a little bit too much of me to put out there, I'm just going to hold that back, and like are there things that only you know about that you've got that it's a really good song, but I'm just not ready for all of that to be out there?
Yes and no, depending on what that is. What I mean is, like, we might say, okay, well, that's like, I'm coming from this persona, if you will, of Let It Rock and all that stuff, and then kind of, okay, Here's to Us is somewhere in the middle. And then there's some that are there. I got a record on this album that's like very sensitive and very beautiful, and you go, are they going to think that like I'm like that? I don't know how people are going to perceive it. So I'll write all kinds of songs. I've worked with so many different
artists. I just didn't know if it was a subject matter thing, though, where you might think of it and go, this is so personal to me that this is the way I got this emotion out, but I'm not ready for everybody else to know that I'm feeling or have felt this emotion.
No, that doesn't bother me because
that's cool.
There's power in that. There's power in the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you've tapped into something there that really translates to people.
When you tell the truth, there's power, and I actually feel like they might connect with it more. It's actually sometimes even showing the even softer sides of myself where people might... it's not that I'm afraid they might not like it. I'm afraid they may misinterpret it. And they may think, oh, he's gone soft or something like that. And then I'm like, then I got to do something hard to get him back, Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, you used the word persona a minute ago. When you do as many different things as you do, are there, in a way, different personas that you have to get into in some way when you're going to work? Like if okay, today I'm going to work with Timbaland. Today I'm working on beats and all this. Is that I don't know. Do you dress any differently, or do you feel any differently, or
I wear a cape?
Do you listen to anything differently to get yourself in a mindset on the way to the studio or whatever, just to make sure, okay, I got to get myself in this particular mindset?
You know what it is? You know what I do though? I choose my instruments differently. So if I'm going in the studio to write a song for a country artist, I'm probably just going to bring my acoustic guitar and maybe some drums in the background, just to have something that moves it along. If I'm going with a hip hop artist, I'm probably not going to bring my acoustic guitar. I'm going to bring my drums, my programs that I use.
That's cool.
So you start from there, and you kind of that gives you the kind of jumping off point.
People probably aren't aware of the amount of work that you've done with other artists. Is there one artist that's left more of an impact than the rest of them, just learning from their experience in the music industry?
I mean, not to sound like I'm trying to please everybody, but I've learned something from everybody, good and bad. I recently worked with Gavin DeGraw on his album. He's like the coolest dude. I really had a great time. We got some great songs done. And I learned from him, learned from writers I worked with. I worked on the new Keith Urban song, co-wrote that, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, he did the new Keith Urban
song. So I try to do, I keep it interesting, and I've also done, records with Lil Wayne. So it's
So no matter the
all
artist,
over the place.
Here, the feeling that no one else gets or gets to understand is, what can you? How would you describe, or can you describe for somebody who's never experienced that, the feeling of when you've worked with any artist, whatever it is, and when it's done and you finish it and you walk out and get in your car to go home or to go back to the hotel, and you know in your heart of hearts, like that was magic. What we just did was unreal. I just touched into something, whether it's country or hip hop or whatever, that is, we just did something that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
What is it like when you walk away from? Is that like a high?
It's the coolest thing in the world.
Are you able to go back afterwards and just go, okay, I'm gonna take a shower and go to bed now? Or does that remain with you for a while? It's like, I can't. Wow. Or have you gotten used to it now that you've done it so many times?
You get used to it, and then you know, it's like you've given birth, and then this amazing child is there, but that you also know that kid has a long life ahead of it, and it's going to go through joy and pain and disappointment, and you know, that song, as amazing as it may be, may never see the light of day, or it may be the biggest song in the world. So you temper that a little bit, I think.
What has been use the word disappointment? What has been your biggest disappointment in the music business?
I think you know, every artist lives with the disappointment of being misunderstood. I think that's the biggest disappointment, that people, you never feel like they really understand what you're trying to get across.
You never ever feel like they really get it?
Not fully. You know, it's not anyone's fault. It's the fault of, that's just the way the world is, and we like to put things in little boxes, and everything has, oh that's like that, okay, and I'm like, no, I'm not like that. You don't understand. I'm over here, you know. But at the end of the day, I have to accept that I'm going to be put in some box, and that I'm actually just happy people are listening to the music. Yeah,
because that's interesting though, because I even did that when I mentioned it's kind of like a train song, because people are looking for a reference point.
Right.
If you haven't heard something, well, what does it sound like? Oh, it sounds like this, or it sounds like his last song, or it sounds like this other thing.
And you could and you could imagine if Picasso was painting a painting, and they said, "Oh, yeah, that looks just like the Van Gogh stuff I've seen," you know, and then you're like, "What?" You know, is Picasso's gonna you'll be thrown out of the studio? You know what I'm saying? Or if you were, you know, Michelangelo, you know, sculpting something, oh yeah, I like that stuff with the thing with the white stuff on it. You know, I mean, you know, it's like,
I've heard and read a bunch of things, and I remember reading once that when Joe Perry wrote...
And yes, I just compared myself to Picasso.
I forgot what the song was that Joe Perry said he wrote it for Aerosmith because he took something, he was at a point where he wasn't coming up with anything, and so he took some tape that they had and played it backwards and tried to play along with it, and that's how he came up with the riff for some particular song.
Yeah.
Are there tricks like that you use, or something you hear and go, okay, I want to write something like this?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, sometimes it's just like taking something that you started and just effing it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and then seeing what happens, you know. Let's play it backwards, let's slow it down, let's speed it up. Let's just do something to just get out of the out of what you normally would do, you know.
Are you one of those keep a recorder with you all the time guys? So if you're riding down the road and you have a lyric or a thought comes to you,
I got this thing that just came out called an iPhone.
Which counts as a recorder in my world.
That's awesome. What was like the rock star moment? Have you had one of those moments where you're like standing on stage and you turn around and you see everybody's looking at you? Is there one moment in your career early on that you went, holy, this is real?
You know what it was? It was like, we're doing one of the first big radio shows, and I think it was in Miami, and it was, you know, like 35,000 people, and I walked out to watch, I don't know who was playing, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, somebody, and like a bunch of kids just ran down the stairs, and I'm like, who's here? I'm looking around, and they're like, Kevin, come here, and I'm like, man, this is incredible. You know, I mean, it's just amazing. Like that's just a dream that I thought may never come true, and it did. So it was very, very cool.
Was it the first time you'd ever played in front of 35,000 people or whatever that night?
It was one of the first times, yeah.
And that doesn't get old, I'm assuming, right?
It does not get old.
That's what I always want to hear. You hope they say that. Like, you hope everybody you talk to says, no, that feeling...
People can complain about the travel, the tour, you know, the food, the airplane, but when you get in front of the fans, it's amazing.
That's one of the things we always talk to people about, is that you don't know, because a lot of times when you do these radio things, people have no idea that you'll do here, and then after this, you may go get on a plane and fly to Atlanta, and then do a lunch in Atlanta, and then get in a car and drive to Birmingham and do another thing, and hit three whole cities in 12 hours or so.
People say, do you get nervous before you go on stage? I'm like, I'm just happy if I'm awake.
Yeah. That you genuinely a lot of times have to ask, what town are we in again?
Where are we? What are we doing?
So what happens now? Like, for example, today, what is the rest of your day and the next couple of days like for you?
I think we're running around the Carolinas and doing more of this. And
every day
hitting
a couple of different cities and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And then what? You come back out, and do you have a big tour plan in the fall?
No tour plans yet. Just just getting this record out, finishing up my album. And once it comes out, we'll be looking at something like that.
And so do you have a tentative date yet for the full album?
Not a tentative date. This is still really early, so the single's not even out. It's going to be out July 30th.
Okay. Now that's one thing that I'm curious about. Typically, as the music business has changed through the years, the old school way of doing it was you got the single, came out about 3, maybe 4, 6 weeks before the album hit stores. Everybody had a chance to hear it, and it had momentum and all this kind of stuff. This single just kind of, for a lot of us, just came out of nowhere.
Right.
It's like, oh, hey, Kevin Rudolph's got a single out. And then, like you said, album's not finished, don't know when it's coming out. Was there a thought process to that? Or you're just like, hey, I got it. This is just a great song. It's a great lead for the album, but I don't know when it's coming, so should we hold it or put it out or what?
It just, sometimes things have a life of their own, and especially in Cash Money, where they heard the record and they were like, let's go. I'm still working on my album, but I'm almost finished. I mean, I've got a full body of material, definitely. It's just a matter of getting this record out, and it takes time for people to hear a new sound, and so we're leaving time for that.
And then once it's all done, you'll hit the road and do all the regular stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
First song that you ever learned to play?
I think it was it was a Bon Jovi song. I think it was like Living on a Prayer, one of those. I remember I learned Living on a Prayer and not Wanted Dead or Alive. You Give Love a Bad Name, and I thought they're the exact same chords, by the way. So it's just great. It was like a 2-for-1 deal.
Were you a lesson person, or just to pick it up?
I was a little bit of both. I took a few lessons in the beginning. My grandfather bought me a guitar, and he said, look, because he got me like a keyboard before that, and I didn't really do anything. And he said, look, I'm not going to buy you this unless you take lessons this time. I was like, all right. And if I had like the closet with the, like a kazoo and a guitar and a recorder and a thing, and I got a really crappy electric guitar, and I took some lessons for about a year, and then I just started learning things, listening to the radio, just jamming along with it.
As a musician, do you see, and you hear all these things that people say about how there are less musicians these days. There are less people that learn to write and record music that don't. Does that bother you in some way, or is it just a sign of the times and things will eventually rotate around?
No, it doesn't bother me, because I think they're actually missing out. I think that the joy of getting to play an instrument and then get good at it, and the sense of accomplishment that comes with that, learning your craft, getting good at it, is something that doesn't have anything to do with a hit record or success or making money. It's something you always have for yourself your whole life, and I feel sorry for the people that don't take the time to do that.
Do you think that breeds a work ethic?
It does.
Because I've often wondered that if it's too easy to learn how to do it, then you don't appreciate the effort and the time that took into it, and don't maybe give it as much care.
A lot of kids get a laptop or a drum machine, and they make a few beats, and maybe something works out, maybe it doesn't. It's not that hard to make a beat. It's hard to make a great beat, but you can make something passable with no talent. But to me,
everybody thinks they can rap.
And everybody thinks they can rap, but to me, at the end of the day, it's not about, even if they're successful, they're missing it. To me, I take pride in making something that is quality, that's real, that hopefully stands the test of time. If I can do that, then I've achieved my goal, and I'm not looking at anybody else really.
Have you given Lil Wayne guitar lessons at all?
I've been asked that before. I didn't give him guitar lessons, although I used to sometimes I remember one time he's had his guitar and I was sort of jamming and he was looking at it and he was like sort of looking at how I was doing it maybe, but I don't think it wasn't a thing where we got into like, okay, Friday at 6 you're going to learn your 3 first
I just saw
chords.
he made it was a couple of weeks ago. We had a list of him and he was like voted the 2nd or 3rd worst guitarist that's ever been on film or something like that. So I didn't know if the two related in some way.
For totally selfish reasons, what you're with Cash Money, Young Money, they have a reputation. I just imagine it hanging out in Lil Wayne's Miami mansion, all white furniture, all white walls, cheetahs, drugs, craziness. What's going on? What's happening at a Cash Money, Young Money party or any kind of affiliation with them? Is that crazy?
It's a lot of smoke.
Is a lot of smoke. I would imagine. That's awesome. I just want to hang out.
I haven't seen most of it. I'm clouded by all the smoke.
Yeah. I see
I saw as you were going, it's like white furniture, white walls. One of the guys behind it that's with Kevin was like, yeah, it's pretty much pretty accurate.
Nailed it.
Cheetahs, the whole thing. They got
wild animals.
Yeah. That's wild.
And then somebody's bought a new car that they're driving.
Yeah, you just imagine the Bugattis rolling through like a funeral procession.
Yeah, well, it's
crazy.
The new single is called "Here's to Us."
Yes,
out on the 30th.
Yes,
and obviously, I know everybody will be excited about it and looking forward to hear the rest of the album when it comes out. Thank you for taking the time to come by and hang out for a while, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Kevin Rudolf.